well, you guys did it. You brought me to tears. It's not Yizkor, it's not Kaddish, but it is Rosh Hashanah. Thank you. This has been a really hard year. There is nothing more real to say than this has been a really hard year. It's not just hard for me. It's not just been hard to be, a person walking around in Miami. It is hard for this world right now. No one, or at least I wouldn't have thought we'd be here again in COVID. I thought we got the shot and we were done. I thought we'd get the second shot and we were done. And now even the booster, we're not done. We're not done with this pandemic. We're not done with ignorance. We're not done with people not believing in science. We are so not done. We're not done with people making laws about other people's bodies. We're not done with thinking that other countries need our blessing. We are not done with so much struggle and strife and so much pain. And we're not done in our homes with the sadness of mental health. We're not done in our homes with suicide and drugs and people denying their GLBTQ family members. We're not done with abuse. We're not done, and we are just so far from being done. But we're also not done in the sense that we have so much that we can do. We are not hopeless or helpless. We are empowered and we are united. We are living at a time we have no reference for how to live within other than we have no choice. We have no choice other than to mask up, to get shots, to be safe, to socially distance, to remind ourselves that people all around this world need vaccines, and we seem to be going through them and throwing them away. But we also must be reminded that second to all of those things, science tells us that we need to pick up the phone and write an email, drop off food, make phone calls, and reach out to those who we love and those we have yet to love and tell them that they are not alone. I am so done not seeing each one of you. I am so over not hugging, not being the typical Midwesterner who goes up to someone, smiles, says hi, and gives a hug. I am so done not seeing what your faces look like. I am so done not seeing smiles. And I am so done sending my child to school knowing that he could be at risk because of others. But I'm not done standing in front of this congregation and speaking my truths and my authenticity for all of us to go out there and be passionate about something, take control of that something and move forward and put that into action. It might not be related whatsoever to COVID, but what are you not done with? What is inside of you stirring you, making you feel uncomfortable that it is happening? I wrote yesterday, do not let this year allow another time to pass where our hearts, our minds, and our soul are complacent. So Temple Israel, what are you stuck in? What are you not done in? Let me turn that on its head. In Hebrew, the word is afuch. What do you want to go out and change? What do you want to bring to fruition, to life, to give air to, that inside of you keeps you up at night, makes you uncomfortable, makes you excited to wake up the next day with a chance to bring that to life? Only a few months ago, we had such high hopes that we would be back in this sanctuary. I was so excited to get my robe dry cleaned and to be up here with the cantor and to know that all of you would be rushing through these doors. Did we want carnations for the ushers? Did we want ushers at all? Decisions that I thought we had missed for a year seemed inconsequential, and yet we're so far from that. Because now in their absence, I wish those were the decisions that we had to make. These decisions, the synagogue and all synagogues were grappling with, they were complex, and they were influenced by location, access to outdoors, the size of our sanctuary, fluctuating numbers of variants. But now we have to embrace that it's just uncertain. People say, Rabbi, can we have Shabbat after the high holidays in person? The sanctuary is big enough. Guys, I don't know. I wish I knew. To stand here and do what Cantor and I do, knowing that our hearts and our souls are filled by your voices and your vibrations, we miss that. We want it as badly as you do. But this uncertainty about our synagogue, any synagogue, our uncertainty about this virus and our uncertainty about this world, I believe can only be combated when the certainty of our hearts and the stirrings of our passions get put into play. So perhaps the deep meaning of these days of awe is one sentence. None of us are in control. The only thing predictable is unpredictable. Everything is unpredictable. Unpredictability is the only thing. What do they say? Taxes and debt? Taxes and debt. No, unpredictability. We all have it. We have all had it. COVID did not bring it. In fact, the Yiddish idiom says, we plan and God laughs. Wow. God, we need your help. I know you aren't laughing at what's happening to this world, but neither are we. I miss people. I miss community. You, I think, feel that same loss that I feel. So perhaps we need to learn not to try and control, but to live in the gray with that uncertainty, but also with that joy and gratitude, that in the uncertainty there are so many moments that are amazing. There are so many simchas, births, and weddings, people having b'nai mitzvah on Zoom. There are so many certainties in the sense that life does go on. Life will continue to go on, but only if we choose life, as the Torah portion says next week. So how are we going to choose this life that I keep talking about? How are we going to tap into what we are passionate about? It's sad to not be in person, and how I was worried how we would do it another year. But I think about the same questions every year. We are distanced but not apart. And so I ask them to you now. Since Rosh Hashanah last year, where have you been? Where have you been geographically? Where have you been emotionally? Where have you been work-wise, in your friendships, in your family, in your relationships in general? It's a real question. Sit for a second. Where have you been? Who have you prioritized? Who has prioritized you? Who have you said, this boundary allows me to let that person walk by? Or this boundary challenges me to bring them closer? Check in with yourself. Who have you lost this year? The prayer for Yom Kippur says, who by fire and who by water? Who by COVID? Who by broken heart? Who by self-inflicting death? Who have you lost this year? Who have you become? What in you can you identify that a year ago today you can't imagine you would have become? Are you the one who reaches out to your neighbor to make sure that they have food for Shabbos? Are you the one who, in the absence of being able to go to Lotus House, reaches out and drops things there? Who have you become in terms of a mother, a father, a parent, a congregant, a human being? Who have you become, and who are you still seeking to become? What makes you proud? What a great question. And I wrote it. What makes you proud? God, I am proud the way I'm showing up sometimes. I'm proud that when I wake up in the morning and there is some work to be done, and I don't mean tangible, I mean emotional, that I'm willing to face it and not put up walls and shy away. But what work, what things that you have in you are making you proud? And then turn the mirror the other way. What in your life is making you proud? Your job, your family, your commitment to your things that you care about, your role in offering tzedakah and tikkun olam into the world. What makes you proud? What makes you ready to face some changes? Teshuvah, the theme word of the high holidays, Yom Kippur specifically, teshuv, means to turn. It doesn't always mean what we teach in Sunday school, to repent. It means literally to turn. So, what are you ready to turn and face this year? What are you ready to turn and face? What a year ago today did you say, no way? 10 years ago even today, did you say no way? But what tonight, what this high holiday season, are you ready to say, okay, now I feel armed, I feel like I have my tools, I feel like I have my support, I'm gonna face it this year? Is it your weight? Is it your feelings of insecurity, of insufficiency? Is it someone who wronged you that maybe has their own take on a situation? How or what would you chart your next year to look like for your highs and lows? You know, when I was in college, they talked about vision charts. You write it down on a Post-it, you put it up on the wall, you see it, you make it come a reality, or at least you attempt to do so. So if you could vision out 5782 or 2021, what would you put on it? What would be those high points? What do you want to see come into fruition, come into reality, not because it's just given to you, but because you're going to work hard towards it? Life is yours to take. We may not all have the same resources, the same abilities, the same supports, but we can all dream and we can all set goals. So what are you putting forward as yours for the next year? Where do you want to be next year at this time? You know, I think that if you asked any of us 5 years ago anything about this idea of COVID or a virus or something keeping us from one another, nobody would have a clue. Maybe scientists. I would not have. So 5 years ago, would you have guessed you'd be? I would not have been in an empty sanctuary. I can't imagine. Cantor would have thought that. But try to think forward. In the world that you're living now, with the dreams you have now, where do you want to be next year at this time? What relationships can be given a little help right now? Who in your life needs a little bit of love, a little bit of attention, a little bit of you? What phone calls are you putting off? What conversations are you avoiding? Where are you putting up walls that are keeping you from connecting with those that you love? Now, we can't control others' walls, but I can tell you, and I tell you from experience, the minute you are willing to put down your walls, willing to let your heart get hurt, so much more in this world opens up to you. God, it hurts, but it's so meaningful, and it's transformational. Who has provided tremendous consolation, joy, solace, happiness, and laughter to you throughout this last year? Who's been there for you? Cantor, I think about your sister Eve. I saw her log on. She's about to go back to California. I know she has been there. And I'm sure she's one of many people. Who has been there for you? Who has shown up in a way they've never shown up before? Who has made you belly laugh in a time that you wanted to cry from the depth of your toes? Have you told them? And finally, if you were to narrow down what you need from this world for your heart and soul to be calm and at peace, what would that be? If you truly could find the words or the feeling, the motivation, the passion, the pause, if you could hear, as the Torah says, that still small voice inside of you, would you listen? Even if it was difficult, even as the prophets say, I never wanted it. I didn't want to hear what God had to say to me. If we truly could listen, what is your heart and your soul saying to you? And the next question would be, why are you getting in its way? Why aren't you listening? Why aren't we listening? Why aren't we hearing? For some, for most, for me, it's fear. It's fear. It's fear of getting hurt. It's fear of being scared. It's fear of fear. And yet I read this morning the best quote. The only thing as scary as fear is not living because of that fear. How often do we choose to not fully engage because we're scared? So this year, Temple Israel, I pray for a year of light and love and forgiveness, but I also pray for all of us, just as I say when we return the Torah to the Ark for our bar and bat mitzvot, our b'nai mitzvah. For 5,782 years, the words in the Ark, the words in our scrolls, our Torahs, our 5 books of Moses have never changed. Not one letter, not one word has ever changed. So how does this text remain relevant in our hearts and our souls? How does this text teach lessons almost 6,000 years later about things like COVID, gun violence, abortion rights? How does this Torah remind us that the love in our hearts should match for every other individual, independent of who they love, how they love, what they look like, what they have? And the answer is we change. We change. Those words never change. They will never change. But I can guarantee you, if we are willing to change, to hear that still small voice, to look into our passions that stir us and keep us up at night, and then wake up in the morning and say, I'm not going to be passive anymore in my own life, then we can return to this Torah in 5,783 so much more present and rich, so much more at peace and calm within our heads and our hearts, and so much more aligned with exactly who God created us to be. And it always, always for me comes back to that. It says in Bereshit, we are created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. And that every chance we have to return to that authentic self is an opportunity not only to please God, but to get to know ourselves that much better. May we return home inside of here, and inside of here, inside of here by next year. But may we wake up tomorrow morning already trying to get there. Chag Sameach.